The first one's an interesting connection of multiple stories. So, a swirling rumor that's captured the industry is one that surrounds Blue Box Studios and the tinfoil hat theory of it being made by Hideo Kojima and a possible PlayStation 5 exclusive in the works. Prior to that, there were further mumblings supported by shelves of Phil Spencer that Kojima is getting in bed with Xbox, which would make sense, of course, with Death Stranding struggling a bit to be exposed to a lot of people. You imagine a lot more of these niche games are going to head to Game Pass.
Yeah.
Interestingly, this week we saw a hiring that connected a couple more dots in what the legendary game director is up to. Announcing a new hire via Twitter, Xbox welcomed Kim Swift to the team. Quote, "Our team focuses on three pillars in our games: community, innovation, and inclusivity. Today, at K2, the Swift joins us in Xbox Game Studios Publishing to accelerate our innovation and collaborate with independent studios to build games for the cloud," end quote. Kim's most significant work was at Valve, where she was development lead on the likes of Portal and Left 4 Dead. VentureBeat reports, quote, "Microsoft is making the move in part to specifically aid Kojima. That legendary developer was previously going to make a game with Stadia, but Google has backed away from games. The Metal Gear creator is now in the midst of negotiations with Xbox to produce the game. Kojima Productions is still in the early design phases for this project," end quote. In an interview with Polygon, Xbox Game Studios publishing head Peter Wise attempted to describe this new initiative. Quote, "The company's next big goal is to create cloud-native games. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like today or what it even plays like. Kim is going to build a team focused on new experiences in the cloud, something that's going to support our mission of bringing Xbox games to connect 3 billion gamers to play our games," end quote. Now, Ben, Xbox has a habit of sometimes speaking like this where they know where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all had that as creatives where you have this idea and you're like, how do I put it into words? And no one gets it until we start to see it. I feel like they've done that before. We saw it a little bit with the Bethesda acquisition. How are the exclusives going to end up? We saw it with xCloud. How is that going to end up? And then you eventually see the product. I have examples I jotted down of times where Xbox has used clouds for their games.
Mm-hmm.
But before I dive into that, I want to know, what do you envision when you hear this stuff? Kojima aside, what do you envision when you hear games in the cloud? What comes to mind for you, if anything at all?
I mean, when I first read this, my first thought was just that, they're doing so much with cloud gaming right now and enabling games to be able to be played on cloud through xCloud, that maybe they're just going to have some more where you have maybe the possibility of having a small local client if you want that, but really a game that is designed to be made in the cloud. All these other games we're seeing are games that are designed to be played locally, but are able to be played in the cloud. So, you get games that have, if you've got a lot of latency, it doesn't matter as much. Probably a lot more non-first person shooter, single player, but non-first person shooter type games where it's not as important if there's a little bit of latency there. So I think I don't know. I'm with you. I mean, that's confusing. They clearly know what they're talking about, but they haven't telegraphed that out directly to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two examples I brought to the table. One was Microsoft Flight Simulator. This was a recent one where they used Azure in order to somewhat accurately create every inch of the entire globe with incredible detail. They used data from Bing Maps to generate 3D models using terrain, roads, vegetation, buildings, and other world materials. And if you have using an internet connection, the game streams all of these in real time, which we can see that in action. We've seen that before. The other was one I actually dug deep for because it always stuck with me. And I'm sure there have been instances between Crackdown 3 and Microsoft Flight Simulator, but I couldn't quite narrow them down. But this was not indicative of the final product, but something that Microsoft heavily touted with the power of cloud computing, which is real-time environmental destruction in Crackdown 3's Wrecking Zone gameplay, which we saw in 2015. And it was there in the final product, although not as extensively. But that's what I viewed it as, is this almost extension of what the game is capable of through cloud computing. When it comes to Kojima, I'm not going to bother guessing. I'm not. If anyone could try to guess what Death Stranding was before it came out,
right?
And this is what he's going to make. No, we're not going to. I think as someone who likes to speculate, it's a waste of time to speculate on that. What I really would like to focus on is, what do you make of Xbox gearing up this hard to get Kojima on board? I mean, that's a pretty strong move to say, hey, we're going to make this hire. We're going to make it public. We're going to have an interview supplying that, explaining what we're doing about this initiative to really, in particular, help Kojima and, of course, other developers, but help him see his vision through. This is this could be I don't want to say just in a console warsy fashion, but a major blow to PlayStation. But I mean, this is a guy who's home with PlayStation since the PS1 with Metal Gear. And here we are now looking at him switching a little bit. So what do you think about this pretty substantial move to get Kojima on board?
I think maybe it is a little bit of console wars. I mean, for years we've been saying like, oh, it's so nice that all the big guys play together. But it really started to hit me whenever at the Xbox conference, when they, a couple times came out and said, yes, this will be Xbox exclusive or Microsoft exclusive, whatever. And granted, we wanted them to come right out and say it, just put it in words that we could all understand as simple people. But there was a little bit of like, oh, that that kind of sounds like it would sting if you're a fanboy of PlayStation, really want these games, and
right.
I almost wonder if this is like another, like they're still playing nice, but like, hey, this is exclusive. That's the right hook. And hey, by the way, we took Kojima. We still like PlayStation. They're great over there, but we're gonna do this better.
Right.
So I think that is a little bit of it. Now, obviously, I mean, people love Kojima. He's a visionary. He makes crazy stuff and really innovative. And I could see Kojima being the guy to use cloud gaming in a different way, something with cloud gaming that we've never seen before. But I have to imagine there's a little part of them that was like sitting in a boardroom. Hey, what if we stole Kojima? Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You have to imagine it starts somewhere, right? It's not just because let's be honest, man, if they're thinking metrics, they're thinking numbers, they're going through it all, your data would say, let's stay away from what Kojima is doing just based off Death Stranding. It didn't perform horribly. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it wasn't such a heavy seller that it's like, let's make a hiring, let's move all these parts. Of course, there's something there that is, ooh, that would sting, wouldn't it? And hey, that would look really good for us and flip the script.
Yeah, I'm sure they made their money on Death Stranding, but they probably didn't light the world on fire with their profits either. Yeah.
No. Yeah. And it probably stood the chance to, because it didn't, I say this with all due respect, it didn't look like it was using a ton of assets and development time. There's a reason why they built it so quick, and it's because the world to and fro was not seemingly full of things. So it was probably an opportunity to make a lot of money off that game.
Sure.
And I feel like what we'll end up seeing with this is probably the seeds being placed with like Death Stranding on Xbox through Game Pass. Once again, those things on Phil Spencer's shelf, I mean, I can't help but just dig back into them and go, they're intentional. We know as much. We've heard as much.
Yeah.
And you saw the Death Stranding Ludin statue in the background, and that's what I'm waiting for. Is I say this once again, not to be mean, but I don't want to spend money on Death Stranding. That is 100%, and that's a complete contradiction to my argument at the top of the show, which is, whoa, was Game Pass quality this that? It's like, yeah, I get it. By the way, that's I'm totally aware.
Right.
But Death Stranding's a game I don't want to spend money on, so I'll wait for that on Game Pass. And I think that's how they'll get the ball rolling. Is something along those lines. And
did you play Death Stranding previously?
No, never once.
Okay, yeah.
Did you?
I did. I didn't finish it. I enjoyed my time with it, but it wasn't for me. I played probably 30 hours of it, which was for me too long. But I think it's a good game, but it wasn't for me to finish.
Yeah, I'm interested more now with apparently this new Metal Gear approach they're taking in the PS5 release, where they're adding more reportedly gameplay to it. That would grab me a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't mind the exploration. I think that's kind of nice, but if there's more things happening, that would be a proper response to me. That would get me on board to check it out.
Right. Yeah.